The Business Report brought to you with the compliments of CIBC First Caribbean. Banking that fits your life.
Minister in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Marcia Cattle, wants the Caribbean Development Bank to renew its commitment to investment in data, evidence, and statistics. According to her, statistics are lacking in some countries, and this move will allow for the effectiveness of any policies implemented to be measured. She was speaking this morning at the bank's Leadership in Action conference for public sector policy leaders.
You cannot have evidence-based policy making and planning and analysis and monitoring and reporting without the data that is going to tell you how your policy is affecting people and therefore what you might need to shift in order to do that.
About 80 secondary students who are interested in science and technology got the chance to be exposed to the island's leading fintech company, BIT, recently. The students from 18 of the 25 secondary schools across the island got first-hand tips from senior managers, including the Chief Executive Officer, Senator Rodham Adams.
That could be any kind of payment, from an ordinary person in the street who has to spend time going and getting their money or spend time standing up waiting for to pay a bill, right up to a business who sees a lot of cash come through their doors, physical cash, that typically costs them up to 15% of their total operating cost to process. And the solution to that is an application of technology, in our case, blockchain-based technology.
Senator Adams says they remain committed to offering cost-effective payment solutions to businesses and customers across the island.
It's really important that they see not just the theory in schools of what that means, but they also see a company trying to produce products that solve concrete problems and serve society in ways that inspire them in the future. So that's the overall goal. We bring them in here, we give them an introduction, and then we allow them to speak to every single department that we've got in the company.
Time now to take a look at how stocks traded on selected exchanges across our region.
In Jamaica, Wigton Windfarm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with 15,919,515 units. In Trinidad and Tobago, Trinidad Cement Limited was the volume leader with 20,926 shares changing hands, all for a value of $52,315. And here in Barbados, the stock information was unavailable. Minding your business with the kind compliments of the Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union Limited, who remind you that you are better with us.
On this edition of Minding Your Business, it's time for some hard work as we go on an adventure with Dave Supercuts. While trees are beautiful and important for providing food, shelter, and shade, there are times when they may become a threat to life and limb if they are not cared for and if their growth isn't monitored. And that's where Dave Lovell's company, Dave Supercuts, comes in. Dave says he actually grew up in the business since his father also had a tree trimming business back in the 80s. But in the years that followed, he started doing work with a company called Easy Haul Trimming, where he sharpened his skills and eventually went on to open his own business at Upper Q Road Bank Hall, St. Michael, which is now 19 years old.
I actually got my first major job working with Elegant Hotels at Tamarind. Cove Hotel at the time it was called, no Tamarind Hotel. And that was actually, I was trimming, cutting down a coconut tree that actually bent over the pool. And there were two female tourists that was observing what was going on. So we technically used something called a false scratch, which is actually wrapped around the actual trunk of the tree. And it has a pulley. So you run the rope through the pulley and you tie off the head. So what we know as tree trimming, or arborist as professionally called, what happens then when we cut the actual head and it pulls over, it causes the tree to shake violently. So when that actually occurred and the female tourist saw what happened, and it was almost like on a rodeo bull, she started running up and down screaming, I have to be crazy, I have to be Spider-Man or Superman. There you have the name Dave Supercuts.
And his clientele grew from there. With a total team of 9 workers now, he says safety has continued to be his watchword, and knowledge is important both for him and property owners.
Trees just like how we go to the barber to have a nice trim up and shave up every now and then, trees need a similar thing. They need pruning. When persons have trees in the area for a very long time, especially fruit trees, they eventually use up all of the minerals and nutrients in the soil. It's good to put back. That keeps the tree flourishing nicely. You need to prune the dead wood from the trees from time to time. Otherwise, those diseased part of the trees then acts like gangrene and then contaminates the rest of the tree. Like for instance, there's the avocado tree. The termites love that tree. And they actually undermine the tree from the root. They eat the inside out into a hollow. But the tree still produces prolifically and beautiful, yeah. What happens then when you wait to the avocados, then you find that branches start to break off, and then the tree eventually dwindles away.
Now, on the day we caught up with Dave and his team, he was doing a tough day-long job to trim some mahogany trees that were creating severe problems for a homeowner, who also had concerns about the damage that falling limbs would cause in a storm. The process was tedious because it involved the climber way up in the tree in his harness, cutting individual large branches, and then the guys on the ground safely controlling the fall of the limbs with rope. When they reached the ground, more team members then cut the limbs into smaller pieces before loading them onto the waiting trucks. So when I got started helping out the team, the first thing I realized is that even small cuts of mahogany are heavy, really heavy. So it was a good switch to eventually be able to give my muscles a little rest and get my hands on the chainsaw, with some safety guidance beforehand, of course. It also showed again just how important safety is to Dave and his team. He says every rope, harness, and piece of safety equipment is checked before they go on a job site, and if any of the ropes or harnesses have even the slightest defect, they're replaced. Dave says that's why some property owners must be careful not to disadvantage themselves sometimes.
They may get a cheaper price than the professional cost, obviously, but then persons are not insured. And then they come on your property, they get injured, and then you are liable. And that's a serious thing. So we know as the professional arborists or the tree trimmers, we have public liability and employee liability. So anything that happens on the job, any damage to your property is covered, or any damage to any of my staff is also covered.
But there's actually another aspect of their work that Dave says is a key part of what they do.
It's not only about cutting the trees and making it clean up. Persons may come to do a job and then the area, you're not supposed to know that I was there unless you look up at the trees. So the ground is supposed to be clean when done. We rake, we blow, we take up everything. What was there, not there before we got there, is not going to be after we're finished.
Meanwhile, Dave says estimates for property owners are actually free of cost, and they do not consider anywhere in Barbados too far to travel to do estimates. Now, if you'd like to get in contact with Dave Lovell and Dave Supercuts, just give him a call at 238-0386, 429-4471, or email Dave Supercuts at hotmail.com, or check out his Facebook and Instagram pages. So that's it for this edition of Minding Your Business. I've told Dave that the next time I come, though, I want to be the one in the tree instead of the one lifting the logs. Do have a good night.
Minding Your Business, with the kind compliments of the Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union Limited, who remind you that you are better with us.